So tonight's topic is balancing the art and the science of motor learning in golf. All right. And so, Mark, if you can go ahead and change that. So I've been, as Mark said, I've been working on this for a while. And I've really tried to simplify a lot of these interesting new concepts and pieces of science that are out there for us. So these are basically the Cole's notes or the minutia, tip of the iceberg that you as a golf teaching professional need to be aware of. If you want to do a deep dive another time, we can dive into some different areas that I might spark your interest tonight. But the importance is there has to be a balance uh, to to understanding the art and the science, right? So golf instruction today just isn't about fixing swings or showing mechanics. It's about understanding how people actually learn movement. And that's the essence of motor learning. It's the bridge between what we teach, how we teach it, and what golfers can truly retain and reproduce on the course. So why it matters? If we look up the science of retention, only 25 to 50% of information is typically retained after a training or practice sessions, right? So that's a bit of a shocking number there, and that's why golfers forget their lessons, why it's not ingrained in their brain. As we all know that golf is a skill sport, it's not a strength sport. And what separates great coaching from good coaching isn't just knowledge of technique, it's the understanding of how people learn. And we've been through this before. We're not just teaching the swing, we're teaching the brain how to learn the swing. So there's number one is the science side. Motor learning gives us structure. It's the science of how the brain and the body work together. It's evidence-based practice. It has effective feedback and designing sessions that transfer skills from the range to the real game. So that's a really important key note that we'll expand upon as we go through here. The other side is the art side. So science alone isn't enough. It's the art of the coaching that you bring to life. It's the creativity, the empathy, and the timing that connects you or us with the golfer in front of us. And that's what makes learning stick. So there has to be a balance between all of these points. And to be a complete CGTF teaching professional, you need both. You need to be a scientist and an artist. And we need to lead with science, but we deliver with art. So understanding how to personalize instruction, as some golfers best learn with external cues that we know talked about. Others feel more based analogies. Others blend structure more with freedom, drills with discovery. That's really where the growth happens. So just to close off on this slide, understand that science gives us the structure, art gives us the soul. Together, they create learning that lasts. All right, onward. Just tapping in here. So, how do we achieve the balance? So, as I said, we lead with the science, deliver with the art. We personalize. We understand who's in front of us, what their goals are, where they're at, what their skill set is, where they want to go, and we're able to personalize a lesson plan specific to that person. Blending the art is where you start to plan with your lessons to formulate the structured plan that's going to help them get to where they want to go. So we as coaches, we need to develop, and that's why we're doing this, is to learn about motor learning and then be really self-aware of how we are actually coaching the person in front of us so that we can foster long-term engagements and long-term clients. So we have them for a long, flourishing transformation through their golf journey. All right, everybody good so far? So as we all know, there's various types of learners, and we probably don't need to go through all the characteristics of some people are more visual, some people are more auditory, some people are more kinesthetic. And everybody understands
Mm-hmm.
all of those terminologies? If you
Mm-hmm.
don't, speak up and we can dive into that. Everybody good?
Yep.
So the important thing is to, again, um, speak in a language that the student understands. Adapt your teaching to accommodate the different styles. Essential for enhancing retention, building confidence, and promoting long-term improvement. All right. So out of all those three, everybody learns differently, but I think a really good pro tip, what I call is the triple threat, and that's using a mixture of all three of those styles. So as a golf pro, you should be able to show it visually, should be able to say it auditorily, and then let them feel it kinesthetically. So the triple threat is a great way to really hit that home run with your student. So you have to be a great translator. Our job is to connect the swing to the student in a way that's memorable, personal, and motivating. And that's how we really get through to make the lesson stick.
Jeff, just
Right?
bear with me for 1 second. I'm going to just click on slideshow and current slide.
That's fine where you're at there, Mark.
It's big enough.
Oh,
Is that better or no?
if you can make it
Mhm.
bigger.
It says now it's paused.
Mm-mm.
If you click on that way down at the bottom, you should be able to get rid of the sidebar.
How's that?
There you go.
You see it okay?
I think it's better.
Okay.
All right. So this so far isn't really rocket science. This is all stuff that we already know and we should be doing, right? I just really want you to think about, how you're coaching. Are you really using uh, those ways and means, and including this, right? The three senses of learning, right? This is a big, big, powerful part of it to really tune into how the brain receives information and how it starts to ingrain it into the brain, right? So blending all of these things make you a really, really good coach. All right. Okay, moving right along. So demonstration, I think, is a really, really big thing that some of us tend to get away from um, when we're coaching. But it's really an important factor for the brain to really be able to understand. That's what makes a mirror one of the best training aids ever, that people can watch and see, observe how you are doing things. They may not do it specifically the way you are doing it, but at least they start to get a general idea of the movement pattern that's involved for that particular shot, whether it's a putt, chip, pitch, etc. Right? The bottom little line there that people steal with their eyes is a really, really interesting phenomenon that we don't really, that we take for granted. Okay? So when you demonstrate, you not only build credibility and confidence with them, it helps to provide more clarity than words can ever achieve. So don't underestimate the power of demonstration when you teach or when you coach, right? It is really, really a big piece of the puzzle, and people can learn a lot by watching. All right. Any questions or comments so far? All right. So here's where we get into a little bit more of the sciencey stuff, the brain-body learning loop in golf. So in an essence, we're trying to train the brain so the body doesn't have to think, right? So golf performance is not muscle memory. I'm going to introduce you to a new term tonight. So muscle memory is kind of out of the vocabulary. It's about how effectively the brain and the body communicate through a continuous feedback system, this learning loop that's right here in front of you, that links perception, intention, movement, and adaptation. Right? We know that the brain receives sensory information through your eyes, ears, hands, feet, vision, right? So the brain really is the input mechanism, right? It understands what's being brought in so that it can have good output. So the quality of the input shapes the quality of the output. Garbage in equals garbage out. So planning, processing the blueprint for the motion or the movement. The brain, as we know, is the CEO. It analyzes the environment, the setting, the intent, the intention, the target, the club face, the tempo, the swing path. And a clear plan gives the body a clear message. So the formula is intention plus attention equals direction. So without an intention, the body doesn't have real, or the brain doesn't have a plan to send the message out to the body to perform it. And so number three, the body executes or outputs. The body is the employee carrying out the brain or the CEO's orders. Muscles, joints, fascia deliver the swing. It's too fast for conscious control. The goal of practice, create a neural program that runs automatically under pressure. All right. So one of the quotes that I have is, smooth is smart and smart becomes automatic. So it's vital that we keep the body connected through the brain while we train in a nice quiet environment where we're not being disturbed by cell phones or other stuff going on around us. So your learning environment has to be such that there's no interruptions and the golfer in front of you can start to fully get themselves engrossed into the process in front of them. All right. And then number four, the feedback. And this is really where the learning takes place. After the swing, the brain collects performance feedback through the best F word in golf, which we know is feel, body awareness and rhythm, through sight, the ball flight, the contact, and that glorious sound, the strike, the impact tone. The brain compares what was intended to what actually happened And this could identify either error and or success patterns. So we like to say that the ball flight is the brain's report card. So in a post-shot sort of review, as I said, where the learning takes place, this is where people need to really savor the flavor and hold that follow through finished position to let the brain and the body absorb what has just transpired, right? Far too often we're quick to, the student's quick to rake in another ball and do it again without any sort of reflection. All right. So within each of these loops, the brain refines its database and strengthens the neural connections. Repetition and with awareness, not mindless reps that I just sort of talked about, creates efficient movement patterns through a process called myelination. And that's simply an insulation that gets wrapped around the nerve endings, making them stronger and more resilient, and helps for the brain to remember what has just happened through that swing motion. All right, so to wrap it up, the loop in motion is perception, has a perception, the brain makes a plan, body creates the action, then we have a feedback, and then there's an adjustment, either positive or negative, and that ends up in what we call encoding. And that's our new terminology for muscle memory, is brain encoding. We're like a computer analyst, where we're encoding into the CEO, the hardware of the brain. So every shot is a message from the body to the brain and from the brain back to the body. When the loop is clear, learning sticks, confidence grows, and performance flows. Do you know how I like to rhyme? All right. How are we doing so far?
Good.
Mark, you want to jump in and say anything? Maybe Mark's gone. Oh, still there?
Jeff,
Yes.
got a question.
Okay.
When you're imparting the information to the student, and the student gets up and swings the club and hits the ball somewhere, and they think they've done it all right, is there a breakdown in their brain interpreting your story, or is it in your story imparting it? You understand what I'm saying? That they think they swing properly, but they're nowhere close to what you're trying to have them do.
Um,
Does that make
not
sense?
sure.
Or am
I'm
I,
not really sure I'm following you.
if we're working with a student, say a brand
Right?
new student,
Yep.
and you're trying to give them this information between the brain and the body and all that. If they then swing a club and they're telling you, yeah, I'm doing fine, but when you see them on the video, they're anything but fine, right? And I'm not trying to pinpoint, I'm not trying to nitpick little things. I'm
No.
trying to think of basic stuff that should be happening in the swing. That's
Right. So let's remember that, it's we're not trying to create a specific, fashion show with their swing
oh no,
technique.
yeah,
It's a function show. So how did the ball go? What was their intention? Did the ball go towards the intended target? Did it fly high? Did it fly low? How happy were they with the results? Right?
mm,
So if the ball goes where they intended and it flew all right, then how it got there doesn't really matter, right?
right,
So if they're happy with it, they like the way it went, then, you know, you could say, well, that was, you got there, but if we tweak this a little bit, this would make it go even better, right? So don't get hung up on the video appearance of it. Just transform them to try to make them a little bit better. If they're happy, right? Just make suggestions along the way that, if you want to experiment, we could try this to see if this helps. This makes it a little bit better. Does that answer your question, Paul?
Yeah.
All right. So, Mark, are you there?
Yeah, he's there.
I'm here. I'm just, I was on mute and I was talking and realizing I was on mute. So
Okay.
am I too far ahead now?
Uh, no, keep going.
Yeah.
Another one.
The only thing I would add to just Paul in my simplistic manner would be there are shots that are really good and there are shots that are really bad. And we probably learn more from the really good shots and the really bad shots than the kind of average shots or the fine shots. There's something that's different that makes it really bad or makes it really good. Um, that's one of the things that I work with my students on is thinking, your feedback on the really good shots and the really bad shots, that's the most important feedback because they're the farthest apart.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't want to spend like 10 minutes on this or 15 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
But to add to what Paul is to his point is, even though that student is happy with the result that just happened after you gave them a tip or whatever, or a type of swing that they need to implement, even though they're happy after the result, but that whatever you just taught them did not happen, how can you explain to the student without making them feel like they didn't understand or didn't understand the concept of what you're actually trying to teach them? How do you make them understand that, yes, it was a great shot, but the technique was completely bad, without making them feel like they didn't get it? Because they didn't get it. For example, if I'm trying to make somebody swing more into out because they have a huge over the top and create major slices, if they hit a straight shot, but they still hit it out to in with a big over the top, they were just lucky that time, as they are on the golf course, maybe 70-60% of the time. How do you make them understand and continue the lesson on the fact that you didn't apply the technique, even though it was a great shot? So how can you switch that with the brain body loop and make it work for you? Because I
Right.
just feel
So I
that,
think I understand what you're saying there,
yeah,
Alain. So what are you using for feedback mechanism? Are you using a
so,
launch monitor?
The one that I had
so
in
for
the
me, I'm
sunroom
working
is
with
the
a
one
launch
I can't
monitor
get start.
on a business with whom I have a partnership. So I have
So if
all
you've
the
got
data.
something that's measurable, right? So if
Yeah,
you've taken some baseline stats and baseline
I have everything in video.
video and you have data to back it up, then that becomes a conversation with them saying, okay, you got that one, but here's where we could be a little bit better by sharing the data with them or sharing the video with them,
Absolutely,
and then you want to
absolutely.
see how many times out of 10 can he actually reproduce that shot. So yeah, every once in a while, we all know that we hit a career best, right? But let's train to ingrain so that happens more consistently. So when you review the data, review the video, say here's some room for improvement. If you're willing to try
It
and
it
willing to
that's
stick
that
with the
was
plan, the program, we can get you to be a little more consistent.
and that's where I was going with that. Is we're talking about patience. How do you make somebody understand that in golf they must be patient.
Right. Yeah, that's the time, the importance of time in golf.
Yeah.
And sort of Rick was chatting about time with the lab putters, that takes time for people to learn, understand the nuances of a lab putter. It's no different than when you're trying to make a swing change or improve your swing. It takes time. And,
Patience
so
starts with us too.
depends, yeah, patience and time and the commitment factor to the person in front of you. What are their goals? Realistically, how much time is this going to take for them to achieve this, whether it's a couple degrees in to out or open or closed club face, whatever the case may be. You've got to be able to share that information with them and keep coaching them up to say, yeah, that was good, but we could still be a little
Yeah.
better in this area.
Yeah.
Jeff, can I butt it in for 5 seconds?
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I think what's also important for a lot of people to remember is that judging the success of what you're trying to get the student to do by using the ball flight as a metric sometimes doesn't make any sense also. For instance, if I've got a student that's swinging severely over the top and creating a slice, and I'm just trying to get them to change their swing path only, and they go inside out and their club face is still open, well, they're still going to see that ball go to the right. And the student can look at that and go, well, that's no better. But that's when it's important to show him the feedback and show the launch monitor and show the data that you made a swing change. This is part of the process. We haven't got all the way there yet, but we can't use the ball flight as a determinant factor on what you're doing to create a new change. I think that's really important for people also. So that don't get hung up on the ball flight.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be misleading for sure. Sometimes, we suggest that when we're making swing changes, we don't really focus on the ball flight at
Exactly.
all.
Exactly.
Right? It's just to throw that out the window because learning is hard and change is difficult. And so we go back to we're teaching new fields, and we all know that how difficult that is to teach somebody a different feel. And we'll talk about a little bit about that as we go on in habits. All right.
Jeff, is it okay that I just wanted to I think everybody's points here have been outstanding. One simple way though that I try to frame before we even do one lesson is something that we do prior to actually signing up for lessons when I'm talking to somebody, or in our first lesson if I haven't had a chance to talk to them. I use a math equation, very simple, probably used this before, so forgive me if some of you guys have heard this, but everything in the game of golf is a result other than your kind of fundamental elements. So think of a math equation of 2 + 2 = 4. 4 is a result. 4 is just a result. So everything other than your fundamental elements, club head speed, club path, club face, height, trajectory, spin rate, like all where the divot is, like every single thing is a result of those fundamental elements. So if we think of the fundamental elements as the 2 + 2 side and not worry about the result at all, you could get a result of 4. And to tie this into what everybody's talking about is you could also do an 8 - 4 to get to 4. But that got you the result of a straight shot, but you did it the wrong way. But if you can frame your lesson plans to right from the beginning with your students to kind of say, look, you may get a few 4s here. You're going to get some 4s that you're going to think are going to be really good. And if you're on a range, it's the most difficult place to teach with no data, because they view that as a good shot. It was straight. It went high. It was where I wanted it to go. I got a 4. Problem is that was at it was an 8 - 4, and it cost you distance. So yes, it was straight, but it went 80 yards, not 100. You can't really tell that on a range, but if you have the data, as you mentioned before, to back it up, you can then explain quite easily to say we didn't do the 2 + 2 to get there. You can see your path was outside in. You see your face is open. It happened to go straight. We got a good 4, but that was an 8 - 4, or that was a 12 divided by 3, or that was a 4 × 1. I mean, you got the result, but not the right way. So then refocus them on the 2 + 2 side, ignore the result. Did we get the path in and out? Did we get the face closed? There, we got what we wanted. That's the 4 we're focusing on right now. And we got that.
Right.
Don't care about the ball flight. Don't care that you hit it thin. So if that gives context to anybody to how to frame that prior to, it's a lot easier than in the lesson to get them out of the mode of just admiring the result and thinking they did it right. That really helps with the brain body connection, is that they've already got framed prior to going to lessons to that's what we're doing. We're not just looking for straight shots here. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Thanks for letting me jump in.
Thank you. All right. Good to have audience participation. Thank you very much. All right. So, moving on, again, some just review of some of the key motor learning principles and how we train. Again, we know all these from being involved as a golf teaching professional, but just to really break this down into some more sciencey stuff, that the blocked practice, or what I refer to as the snail, as we know, it's the same shot or motion over and over to the same target. So the purpose of this is to build initial familiarity with a new movement or a concept. So it is important, especially as we move through the learning stages. It's not always the best for long-term improvement, but it allows for short-term success, and the feels that we always look for feels like improvement. And that's one of the key things, as being a golf coach, is if someone can see and feel improvement right away, then we've got a win on our side, don't we? That will keep that student engaged. Um, but the limitations on the brain side of it is the brain doesn't have to resolve any problems each time. It becomes this sort of automatic repetition. So our retention drops sharply after practice ends. And then we have this classic performance illusion that we did really, really well. So skills learned in blocked form rarely transfer to the unpredictable nature of on-course play, but it does have a great use for early learning stages for beginners and understanding a concept or a feel, right? So block practice is like rehearsing the same dance move in your living room. Looks great there, but wait till the music changes and you're out in public. Yikes. All right, so random, I like to refer to as the jog. It's mixing the shots and clubs unpredictably throughout practice. Right? And we know that this forces the brain to retrieve and reconstruct the movement plan each time. So we're increasing engagement in the prefrontal cortex, which is the decision-making part of our brain, and it strengthens the memory retrieval loops. So this better reflects the reality of a golf course, where we play different shot, different situations. So randomization is very, very important as the student works through the progress from snail to jog. So slower to look good, but fast to make it stick. This leads to stronger retention and better transfer under pressure. So once the basic movement is understood, then you start to train adaptability, right? Expect, again, more errors at first. That's the learning in action, where we will have a lot of different results and different motions as the brain starts to organize, what this movement is supposed to be or change. So to sum it up, block practice is like comfort food. Random practice is brain fuel. Moving on, the interleave practice. This is where the rubber hits the road, and this is a structured rotation between related but distinct skills. say from wedge from 50 yards to 7-iron approach, short putts, wedge. So you're alternating back and forth, and it blends the structure of the blocked with the variability of the random. And this is what encourages contextual interference, where the brain has to switch and adapt between the skills. And this trains decision making, shot selection, and feel recalibration. And this is where it's super beneficial for long-term retention and adaptability. And it mimics the real golf flow where no two shots are alike. Right? Again, best for retention, performance preparation. All right. So interleave practice turns the driving range into a mini golf course for your brain. And it's really, really super imperative that you build that into your lesson plan. Right. So scaffolding, again, is a new fancy term where we're just building layers upon layers as we progress through the snail, jog, run process to take our students slowly, transformationally through the lesson to take them to kind of the next level. Pardon me. So the winner of all of these is this interleaved with random, the most effective for lasting retention and on-course transfer, where the brain best challenged to recreate, resolve movements under changing contexts. This is what really strengthens the neural encoding and builds a flexible, adaptable swing that survives the chaos of the real golf. So if you can get out onto the golf course and use situational practice on course play or context, that's where you're really, really going to make a home run with your golf student. That's where the real learning and playing takes place, is on the golf course. So sum it up, the snail is the blocked, build the move, jog, random, challenge the retrieval, and then run the interleaved, the simulate the play. Train the brain, not just the swing. Okay. Onward. So here again, just a graph to sort of explain that retention effectiveness. Okay. So 1 being high retention, 0, no retention. Okay. So it's we all know that people want to look good when they practice, right? They don't want to make mistakes. They don't want to be uncomfortable, but they need to get uncomfortable and they need to make mistakes in order to learn. And that's part of the learning curve that we all know too well, that it's golf is a journey, right? It's filled with peaks and valleys. And we just have to be there with our students to help them along the way and coach them up and be positive throughout this whole process. Okay. How we doing, Mark?
Doing great, Jeff. You're doing fantastic. And I got to say, I've seen you present the old kind of mindfulness and the arts and science of learning. This is fantastic.
So, can we get on to slide 12, Mark? I think
I'm too far ahead or too far behind.
you got to go ahead.
Ahead.
Oh, back.
Back.
Back. Keep going. Right there. Yep.
Well,
Right there. Nope. Ahead. One
ahead
more.
one.
Yep. Muscles, memory. There we go. Okay. So just again, going back to this whole sciencey thing, right, where muscles don't store the memory, it's the brain, right? Um, so we have to really get that through our golfers' brains that even though we're describing a process called motor learning, movements aren't stored in muscles themselves, but they're stored in these neural pathways within the brain, the CEO. So every time you repeat a swing, your brain refines this roadmap or a motor pattern for that action. The refinement occurs as the brain wraps these fibers in myelin, and we talked about this fatty insulation called myelination, and that helps to build this faster, more accurate highway from your brains to your muscles and how the body is supposed to move, right? So the more we get things myelinated, the more your swing feels automatic under pressure. And as we all know, the big T word is time. Okay? So we have to have that whole importance of time conversation with our students, depending on the goals that they have set. Um, and so it takes, and I have a whole page of information on the timeline from first practice to long-term retention. And what do we kind of think that timeline is that it takes somebody to learn something or make a change? Anybody have an estimated number of weeks or months that they might throw out there? Maybe want to throw a guess out? Well,
Years.
it's at least, it's, sorry,
Years.
could be years. Yeah. So depending upon how many days of consistent practice and how many weeks of quality repetition, uh, it's going to take at least, 6 to 8 weeks of solid commitment for somebody to make some serious changes or improvements in their golf swing, right? So that's just how long it takes because we become so comfortable in what we already do, known as habits. Okay, so we have to be really, really uh, strong in recommending focusing on one new motion for about 4 weeks. And after 4 weeks, we reevaluate before we add anything else. Most people stop too soon, right? They jump onto YouTube, they're looking for a quick hit, they're looking for a hot tip, and this fluttering around from tip to tip never really fully ingrains or encodes our brain, so that memory never really happens. That makes sense, doesn't it, everybody?
Jeff, if I could, one of the things that we as teachers sometimes maybe overlook once in a while is the fact that we have a plan that we is going to take a while for the new brain body connection to kind of go 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Going to take a while to that really meld in there. But your golfers got to golf. They have to golf Wednesday in league. They got to golf on Saturday, right? So one of the things is we also one of the reasons we have great success here, I think, is there's a functional movement, a kinetic chain of events that are happening, of which we might be working on one or two movements at any particular time, have more focus. But we also have to provide that golfer a bit of frame of context in there so that they can take that out to the golf course, have at least a modicum of success so they don't, as you said, leave and go look for the next tipper because that's not working. Well, this isn't a tip. This is the the science of the golf swing, how it kind of works, right? But it has to work
Yeah.
in that chain or that movement. So I would challenge all the teachers, that we have and all the professionals here, like make sure your students really do understand that, yes, this piece that we're working on is really important, but it's also in context of like 5 other things that are happening. Don't forget that this is a bigger thing. We're swinging to the target. Have that feel as you're doing it, but go to the target. Don't try to hit the ball there. Go to the target. Whatever concept that you're going to talk about there, but make sure they reconnect that one thing that you're doing that is going to take a while to perfect, to make it still part of the entire system. Because otherwise they'll get onto the golf course and just try to do that one thing that you worked on, and then that's not going to work, and then they're going to give up on it, and then you're kind of spinning your wheels for 6 weeks instead of seeing them progress over the 6 weeks. So just wanted to kind of jump into to sort of mention that it's anchored in that maybe 1 or 2 things that you're working on that field, but it is part of a larger picture that you got to make them at least be able to do that on Saturday when they go golf with their buddies, or Tuesday in the ladies league, or whatever it is. So anyway, sorry, I just want to jump in and put that in context. So
Good point.
Just a comment, if I could. One of the things I've mentioned to my students is they talk about all the tips that they've went to on YouTube and the different things. And I said, you got to remember something about tips. They're like a Band-Aid. How many tips have you had? How many do you still remember? What happens to a Band-Aid? It falls off. And so there's no context to the tip, they'll never develop the next thing you want them to do.
Totally agree. Right. And the other analogy that we use is tips is like taking another man's medicine. Right. You wouldn't take somebody else's prescription just to think and hope, oh, if it works for him, it'll work for me. And that starts the whole spiral down the staircase of getting all of this too much information in the brain and not knowing where to go and what to do. So as teaching pros, again, we have to have these conversations to get our students to stick to the plan. Here's the plan. Here's where we're going. This is how we're going to get there. And if you commit to the plan, we'll get to the destination. Right. So yes, it's, like that country and Western song, I'm a work in progress. That's what you are when you start, to work on your swing during the golf season. So I don't mind giving somebody a Band-Aid sort of, where Curtis was coming from to help them get through the round on the next day or something. But just know, as you mentioned, Dale, Band-Aids do fall off. And we're really trying to get to the root cause of the problem here to ingrain that so we don't need Band-Aids anymore. Okay. So we're trying to move along from getting the brain to be encoded properly so that we can both improve our technique, right? And then our technique gives us the basis to build skills upon. So once we have a basic understanding of a swing technique, we advance it to building skills to make that technique work in various situations that we encounter on the golf course. Okay.
Can I make a quick comment?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that it all depends also on the context. In other words, how much does your golfer want to devote in terms of time and money to getting better at golf? You can go deep dive or not, but it really depends on how much they're willing to put in.
Right. That's a good point, Don. So again, when we're having that first interview, what does golf mean to you is the question we should be asking. Are you a committed golfer or are you a casual golfer? That's 2
100%.
programs that I'm running this winter. Are you committed? Then you're going to follow this. If you're casual, then we're just going to kind of, work with you and kind of make some little improvements. But if you're committed, then we're going to get to work here and we're going to have a plan. Okay, moving right along because time's flying by here. I know there's Maple Leaf fans in the crowd that want to get to the game. So repetition without repetition. Who's heard of this term before? Anybody? So it kind of goes back to the whole premise of interleaved and randomized practice, but it's repetition without repetition is never the same swing twice. And it seems to be the secret to solid learning. So uh, real improvement comes not from mindless repetition, but from purposeful variability that scientists know as repetition without repetition. The old myth of muscle memory uh, is kind of out, and we sort of, think we groove it on the range, but we lose it on the course. But this new science of variability creates stability. Each slightly different attempt forces the brain to solve a new problem, activates more neural pathways, deepens understanding, and builds movement flexibility. When the brain adapts to small variations, performance becomes more reliable under pressure, right? So, how it works, the golfer performs the same skill, the same contact, ball flight, but under different conditions. So, different clubs, slightly altered targets are lies, randomized distances or tempos, um, lots of different things that the brain has to reorganize uh, the movement pattern each time, refining coordination and control. So one of the ways I use this is I get them to use a 7-iron and try to hit it 50 yards, then try to hit it 100 yards, and then try to hit it 125 yards. And then same club, only now we do it from a downhill lie, a side hill lie, uphill lie. Um, again, just trying to get them to figure out how to get that 7-iron to get the ball towards the intended target. So it encourages self-organization, which again helps the learner find solutions and not really memorize these specific positions that we all get wrapped up in sort of teaching and being in. So one of the best comments or quotes that I have is better golfers don't repeat swings, they repeat solutions. So dive into that a little deeper on your own, repetition without repetition, and add that to your repertoire. Okay. All right. Let's move on, Mark, and let's reframe faults and fixes and kind of change our verbiage to using a new frame as tendencies. So what we're really trying to do when we alter or change patterns is change the habit, not the person. Habits are hardwired movement patterns in the brain that have been automated over time. They're built for survival. As we all know, we are negative bias individuals. That's the way we were built from caveman days to survive. And that's what the brain knows, how to make things easier. But when these patterns no longer serve the golfer's performance, change must occur through a carefully guided relearning process. The habit, as we know, is a neural shortcut. It's the brain's way of saving energy. Every repeated movement strengthens a neural pathway, making it easier to reproduce. The more emotional or rewarding the experience, the stronger this is encoded. So good, bad, or indifferent, right? So we have to be careful how we respond to what happens in our ball flight or in our post shot routine. So a nice little quote here is neurons that fire together are wired together. So that's why we want to get them myelinated and organized so that they fire together. We all know that changing habits is hard. They're deeply embedded in our brain's motor map, and our brains resist change because it prefers familiarity over efficiency. Under pressure, the golf's brain defaults to old automatic patterns. That's our safety net, our swing. But here's a news flash. You can't delete a habit. You can only replace it with a better one. So that's something we have to, make sure we mention to our student. That's going to be in there for a while, and habits are hard to break, but let's try to replace it with a better one. So how do we do that? We approach through awareness before adjustment. Help them to see, feel, and understand what's happening. So through data, through launch monitors, through video, whatever you're using, help them see and feel and understand what's happening. If there's no awareness, it's not likely that you're going to change it. So we need to create a contrast, and we all know this. We exaggerate the differences so the brain notices something, right? We say that old saying is we have to go a mile to feel an inch. Another way to approach the change is go slow, snail, jog, run. Early reps should be controlled and deliberate, one piece at a time, also known as inch by inch is a cinch. Yard by yard is way too hard. And mile by mile, well, that just takes a while. So avoid overloading the brain. Isolate the key pieces. What are you working on, right? What's the intention? And then the real thing is to celebrate with micro wins. This is what reinforces success with positive feedback loops. And the dopamine, right? That's our brain chemical. That's what we're looking to stimulate, right? And that's what helps us keep our attention and drives the learning. So how to build a new habit loop? Well, we have to have a cue, we have to have a routine, we need feedback, and then we have a reward, right? Change the routine by introducing a new movement or feel. Reinforce the reward by linking success to enjoyment or feedback. Over time and time again, this is the equation. The brain rewires the preferred route and the new pattern becomes automatic, hopefully. Repetition with awareness is the mother of mastery. Okay. So practice strategies for changing habits as we went through blocked, guided, progressed to randomization, variability, using all those internal, external, and implicit versus explicit. That's another new term that we should dive into another time. Training, but you could look that up. And including challenges or tasks to stimulate the problem solving for long-term encoding, right? We're not breaking habits, we're building smarter ones. Change doesn't happen through intensity, it happens through consistency, clarity, and coaching structure. Each repetition gives the brain a choice, the old path or the new path. The more the new one is traveled, the stronger it becomes. Habits don't change overnight, but with time, attention, awareness, feedback, they will evolve into a new skill, right? So if you're not changing, you're choosing. Off we go. How are we doing? I think this one is, again, pretty straightforward and just a little bit of review for everybody that, we want to have golfers have a decent technique. I think every human body and every human being has their own innate way of swinging an object, right? So if we ask somebody to throw an object or swing something, they'll have their own sort of built-in mechanism already. So can we improve that technique? Heck yeah, we can. And that's part of what we do. But it doesn't have to be a perfect technique. It has to be repeatable for them, safe and repeatable for that person, depending upon their capabilities, right? So we build them a technique and then we apply that technique um, with different situations to help build a skill to get different desired outcomes, right? So we all know that some players can play and succeed with less than imperfect technique, right? There's so many different ways to swing a cat or swing a ball bat or whatever, right? So we have to learn how to coach both technique and skill. Okay. All right, Mark. So let's wrap it up. The art of teaching and the science of learning. So the art of teaching, think simple. Just be yourself, be who you are. As we all know, everyone else is taken. But just help others learn how to understand themselves, analyze themselves, then teach themselves. The best teachers have and use a system that includes all methods and utilizes the one that pertain to the golfer in front of them. Have the golfer be their own CEO of their journey, right? You're going to be the transformational translator, transformer person that's going to give them advice and suggestions along the way. So, using the science of learning, make sure that the golfer understands the information. Make sure that they have attention, intention, and they have a goal. That's the only way they're going to grow or make changes. And we all know successful learners have goals. So we have to organize the golfer in a manner that allows them to deliver the club on a path and a club face relative to the target, right? Just be aware of what the learner is capable of doing. Where are they at? We meet them where they are. We start from planet now every time with a student. I think it's really important you take a look back at your lesson planning and start to devise. And this is something else we could dive into later with all of this new insights into motor learning and how we can break it down into the various components and timely put in blocked, random, interleaved, and how it really connects to the various parts of the learning process. All right. But again, have a plan and focus on the step in front of you, not the whole staircase. Practice habits lead to game reality, right? As I said before, if they're not changing, then they're choosing. I'm a big believer in the Rachmaninoff theory, where you practice like a snail or play like a gazelle. Rachmaninoff, the famous pianist, said, practice slowly enough that you cannot make a mistake. And that's hard. That's really hard to practice slow. I have a lot of students that struggle with that. That's just how we are wired, that we're looking to go fast and furious almost 80% of the time. So, as we said earlier, growth only takes place outside your comfort zone, and people are uncomfortable being uncomfortable. But as we all know, hard times make us stronger. So focus on what you can control, right? And you as a golf coach can only control so much. You can't control how much time and effort they put into it. We have to learn to, not get upset when the golfers forget their lessons and um, come back and they haven't really done anything. That's not on you. That's not on us. That's on them. I think one of the new things that I've really asked my students to do post lesson is to write down. That's why I give out journals to all my students, is for them to write down what resonated with them the most throughout that lesson. What are they going to retain, remember, so that they can take with them? And I really feel that writing it down on paper is a quote that says it really crystallizes the message in the human brain when you physically put pen or pencil to paper rather than doing a voiceover on your phone. Self videos are another good tool that I use. And science in that is if you have a committed golfer who really wants to get better, science says that that person should look at their selfie video just before bedtime so that this subconscious mind starts to think that's important and it will start to remember that going forward. So there's lots of little nuances and insights into this whole science of motor learning and understanding how the brain encodes information. So I hope that was helpful. Um, I just, again, really want us, CGTF, teaching professionals, to elevate our games, be the best that we can be, and to really honor the learner who's in front of us, and to steward the art and the science of teaching golf into the future. A good coach inspires golfers to play better golf. A great coach inspires golfers to love the game for life. So, thank you very much.
Great job, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, it was
Pleasure.
Absolutely. That was great.
Any questions for Jeff?
I have a quick comment. I got the golden nugget right at the very end. I'm going to get my athletes to do self videos. That's so smart.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty cool way, Don, that and I get them to do it right there in front of me before they get to their car, before they get interrupted, returning phone calls or messages, so that they can really, really put their thoughts into a video message so that it's right there and then for them to listen to, whether it's before they go to bed or before their next practice session.
But that's so much better than doing it for them. Make them do it on their own and make them review it on their own.
Right.
Great
Yep.
idea.
Are you surprised the amount of people, or let's say new people that want lessons, have never seen themselves on a video?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a gentleman, just sort of go back and, you talk about learners. This gentleman said, "Oh, well, I read an awful lot about golf, so I think I should be better by reading." I like to read too, probably way too much, but I don't think it really helps me with my golf swing and my golf game. It's like I could read about doing a bicep curl, but do you think I'm going to get a bigger bicep about reading about it? Like golf takes, we all know the P words: patience, perseverance, practice. What are the other ones?
Playing.
But playing. Yeah, thanks. Um, but golf practice doesn't come in a pill format, right? you can't get it. You can get a prescription. We can give you a prescription, but you have to participate in order to perform, in order to play. So many people are looking for the quick fix, and it doesn't happen, right? Maybe once or twice they'll get a nugget that works for a little while, but it doesn't truly get encoded because we don't take the time or the effort and we don't train properly to make that habitual, to make that change and to really groove that move. It takes so much time and patience. And that's where the off season is such a good way for those of us who get the winter off, is to work with some people who want to really make some changes and take our time over the next few months so that we really, really can help them be rewarded when the season begins.
Jeff, I,
Yes.
I think a really good complement to this also would be possibly doing a quick seminar for some people who this may all be new to, uh, on them being able to work with the student on identifying what way they like to learn. Because, we can have all the tools we want to reach the different learning styles, but if we can't identify what the student wants, um, it really goes out the window. And I know that myself, there's quite often I'll talk to a student and try and figure out what style they like so I can deliver it that way. They don't know themselves. So then it has to go into a more of a casual conversation of, well, like tell me about, when you buy a new iPhone, how do you go about setting it up? Is it just you go at it until you hit rock bottom and then you look for help, or do you have to read all the manual first, or do you watch the videos and then all of a sudden they start to get an idea of, oh yeah, maybe, yeah, that is the kind of learner I am. uh, you know
Yeah.
um, but
Great point.
sometimes the student doesn't know themselves, uh, in being able to converse with you. They'll know themselves what they prefer, but they may not know how to put it in words of what kind of a student I am. Um, I've covered this before on some things that I've done, which is I'm an extremely kinetic person. I like to get at things and do things, and I refer to manuals and instruction when I hit rock bottom and can't go any farther, but never before that. And if someone tries to bring me down a different route, uh, I tune them out. It's just human
Yeah.
nature. Um, but yeah, maybe we could probably put something together for, just some simple 3-minute conversational tools to help identify what the student likes that way, to make sure that we're not, once again, leading them down the way that we prefer.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think again, it could be another area that we could, look at in sort of the common sense teaching of understanding who is standing in front of you. So we have to have that opening dialogue of, who are you? What do you do? Do you have any hobbies or interests? What do you do for work? What do you like to do? Sort of thing. So we start to get clues. So, um, you know, I always often refer to Ted Lasso, and we need to be curious, not judgmental. We have to learn to ask lots and lots and lots of questions, right? And so we figure out, find out. And if they don't know, then I would hit them with the triple threat, right? I would show them, tell them, and let them see it and feel it and do it until we start to find a way that works best from them. And then we have to be adaptable as golf teachers or coaches. We have to learn when, we watch their body language when, oh God, this isn't working. They're not getting it. They're getting frustrated, which is part of it. And frustration is good to a certain point. But we have to really, read the room, as we say, and start to get a feel. Ask them how you feel and how's it going? How are you finding this? Right. So, yeah, good comment. Thank you.
So everyone, a big thank you to Jeff. Put all that together and presented everything. Yeah, it was very good. Very good start to the continuing education that we're going to have. We got one in 2 weeks. Another friend of Jeff's. Really, he's a friend, Jeff, or
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, Tim O'Connor, and got some really interesting insight on the mental game. So that's going to be really cool to watch a little more modern, up to date approach to coaching your golfers in the, excuse me, in the mental side.